Welcome to Building Reddit. I'm your host, Ryan H. Lewis. As Reddit has grown over the years, maintaining the security of the company and users' data has become an increasingly difficult task. The teams that manage this responsibility are spread out across the company, and internal organization has also become harder than ever. Enter Reddit's new Chief Information Security Officer, Flea. He started at Reddit earlier this year and has already made a significant impact on Reddit's organization and culture. In this episode, Flea describes the formation of the space organization, shares how he approached entering the company's C-suite, and reminisces about some early inspirations for his career in tech. He also shares some of his favorite music, programming languages, and comic books. And there's some pretty good picks in there. Here's Flea.
Yeah, my government name is Frederick Lee, but everybody calls me Flea. Literally everybody except for my mama calls me that, and it is what I prefer to be referred to as, and probably what most people know me as when they meet me, etc. I started at Reddit this year, July 31st, 2023, so right about the middle point of the year here at Reddit.
How did you come to be known as Flea? I'm very curious if there's an origin story.
Yeah, it's not nearly as cool as people would like for it to be. It's very, very simple. It is first initial last name, and it came from YMCA jerseys because there were too many kids with that last name on the back of their basketball jersey.
That's super cool. I really hope you still have one of those jerseys.
No, it's sad. I was not built with nostalgia or sentimentality, so I don't actually keep a lot of things. So maybe that was an inclination that I was cut out for security because I always had a good data deletion and retention policy. So when I no longer need it, I get rid of it. So.
That's awesome. Okay, let's start off with some fun things. I know you're super into music, and you have a long career history. I'd like to start off with some top fives. Could you share your top five musical artists?
Yes. So one is actually pretty easy. For those that know me, they know I love Tool. I believe that Tool is one of the best bands on the planet, and they are still one of the purest musical artists out there. Like, I love Tool because Tool makes music for Tool, as opposed to trying to actually just appeal to whatever the current genres are. Another favorite artist of mine is Bjork. I know she hasn't actually released anything in a long, long time, but her creativity, her ability to actually just kind of find things that are new, to actually just really branch out and explore her own creativity, just always wonders and marvels me. Another is Most Def, now known as Yasmin Bey. And I really do believe he's actually one of the best lyricists that we've actually had in a very, 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 very long time. On the newer side, Earl Sweatshirt, former, or maybe I can say like ex-member of Odd Future Wolfgang Kill Them All. He is a ridiculously great artist, and what he makes is pure poetry. And he actually doesn't care if his albums are approachable by anyone. It's actually one of the reasons why I love him so much. And then finally, I have a really, 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 really difficult choice. Maybe I'll just give you two. But obviously John Coltrane. I am a sax player myself. And one of the things actually just phenomenal about John Coltrane is just how prolific he was, and just how much he actually was just pushing his own capabilities, as well as the capabilities and the expectations in the industry. He's tied with Thelonious Monk. And one of my favorite quotes is actually somebody describing Thelonious Monk, which is like, imagine the most eloquent man having the most eloquent conversation with God. And that's Thelonious Monk. And anytime you get to actually listen to him, you are now actually being able to actually participate in something in the universe that very few people get to actually grasp or hear, et cetera. So yeah, I gave you 6 instead of 5, but 2 of those are tied.
That's okay. I love that. It shows breadth and range and depth. So that's really cool. And later we're going to have to talk about the introduction of a lot of saxophone and modern metal bands recently. Curious if you have opinions.
I do have opinions.
Okay. Okay. Top five comics. You are into comics as well.
Yes. Top five comics. Some of them probably non-surprising. Some of them might be a little bit out there. I am a huge fan of pretty much everything Neil Gaiman, however you actually want to pronounce his last name. Sandman definitely actually stands out as a phenomenal series, and that was all him. From beginning to end, and then also the books of magic, which I would recommend that everybody actually take a look at, especially millennials that love Harry Potter so much, so they actually get to see where Harry Potter was stolen from. Um, After that, it would probably be Bone. And Bone was an indie comic, and not that many people actually got into Bone, and I think partially because Bone kind of had a cutesy art style, but a very, very deep story. So, if somebody was into like maybe Elf Quest or something like that, I'm definitely actually outing the nerds here and outing myself. Bone is a really great story and phenomenal art, and it really is truly approachable, but it's has some really deep story and complications there. I'd be remiss if I didn't make a shout out to Spawn. I am I am a Gen X kid. Spawn is still one of my favorites. And then probably after that, X-Men and X-Men mostly because as a youth, that was probably the first superhero comic book that spoke to me because X-Men was actually mostly talking about outcasts, people from diverse backgrounds, people that weren't normally accepted in society, and how they could actually use what was previously considered maybe a weakness or a reason to ostracize them as for something to actually build upon and to actually bring something great to the world.
So let's start talking about your day job. So you're the CISO at Reddit. What are your responsibilities?
Yeah, so my responsibilities very broadly is I empower the security, privacy, and compliance engineering teams here at Reddit. And our job is to help Reddit understand, identify, navigate, and mitigate risk. Recognizing that, hey, part of our job is to actually help the company make the right choices, such that when people come to Reddit, et cetera, they not only know they are safe, but they also feel safe on the platform because we know that a safe environment draws more people in and actually want to engage more. And that's actually just good for humanity, is actually having more real human conversations, et cetera, is something that's actually extremely powerful. And it's something that we know that we need to protect.
So I know that one of the things you did after you kind of came in and looked at what Reddit was actually doing was you consolidated a lot of things and created an organization called Space, which is the
Yes.
best acronym ever. How do I get on your team? Basically, I want to be on the Space org.
Yeah, I'll give you the cliched answer that every security person says, like, "Oh, everybody's a security person. Like,
Yeah.
everybody's a space cadet, man."
Okay, I'll be a space
And, and that is slightly tongue in cheek, but actually somewhat genuine. Part of the reason for the acronym, and also part of the reason of us actually combining, is we know that we are stronger all together, and we are stronger when we actually have a shared mission, much like astronauts. The space actually literally just stands for security, privacy, and compliance engineering. Exactly what it says on the box. That's what we do. But one of the powers of the acronym is the branding. It is easy for people to actually remember and to think about space. And security is one of those things you actually do want to make part of the culture. In order to actually make it part of the culture, you have to actually make it memorable, and you have to make it something that also gets people excited. One of the other things I like about us referring to ourselves as space and space cadets is that it can relax some of that apprehension that people may have when they're actually talking to a security professional or privacy professional or even a compliance professional. So we don't want people to bring in their previous PTSD from maybe some other company that we're working at where the security people were all mean and they just said no to everything. It's like, oh no, you can't use this programming language. No, you can't use this product, etc. The great thing about space is that space is all about building, right? Space is all about figuring out how to take risk and to take those risks safely. And space is an enabling thing. Think about all the things we actually now have here on the planet Earth thanks to our space program. Hey, if it wasn't for space, we wouldn't have Tang or automatic doors, right? Um, But it's just a similar thing when it actually comes to security and compliance engineering, right? When we do our jobs well, we are viewed as an enabler. And that's actually part of the reason why there's such a heavy focus on that engineering aspect of our acronym, because we see ourselves as somebody who can actually build the future. And even more so with my cliched catchphrase, which is, I stole from Square and Sam Quigley, et cetera, which is whole idea of finding yes. That's exactly what space is about. It's saying like, hey, you know what? We want to go to the moon. How do we do that? And from a security standpoint, it could be something as simple as saying like, hey, you know what? We want to take credit cards on the internet. You actually said that back in the 90s, you were insane. But somebody out there said, no, I am going to find a way. I am going to find yes, and I'm going to build an enabling function that allows somebody to do more while reducing the risk of something that they were doing. And that's why space is so exciting. And you can, obviously the people listening to this can't see it, but I get animated and excited when I talk about this because I am so passionate about it. And that passion is infectious. And every kid out there at some point dreamed of being a astronaut and a space cadet. And so they automatically identify about what that means and what it means to be pushing the boundaries and doing it in such a way that humans can be somewhere that maybe they weren't before in a safe manner.
Man, I love that. I love the depth of the space acronym.
Oh yeah, we have abused the hell out of that acronym. Like we have space jams where we share like the music that we like to listen to. We have our own little Slack channel that we call Spaceballs. Like the whole nine, man. Like the space analogies just go on forever, man.
That's awesome. Cool. Okay, I love the story about the taking the credit cards back in the 90s because I wouldn't think of that as an example. And I know that you have a very impressive and long, illustrious career. I'd love to hear about your history, how you got into tech and kind of just like kind of the beginnings of your career.
Yeah. And thank you. That was probably one of the more polite ways somebody has called me old. So thank you. And later I'm probably going to find out, Ryan, that you weren't even alive in the 90s.
That is a compliment to me. I am not that young. I got Spawn #1 at the newsstand. So if that tells you anything.
Oh, okay. Okay, you're one of my people. Okay, Ryan. So how did I get into tech? I got into tech probably via my father, who was always interested in particular in my family. Education was probably one of the most important things for us. Both of my parents, and for people that obviously can't see me or don't know me, I am Black. My parents are Black. Their parents were Black also. They grew up in the segregated South. Their schools, I remember actually going by and my dad actually pointing out, hey, that's the school I went to. And in fact, when I go and visit where he grew up, they still refer to the schools as the Black school and the white school. The reason why I mentioned that is because it limited a lot of the possibilities that my father had and the interest that he had. And in fact, he was interested in computers very, very early, right? Like you're talking about the 50s and 60s, et cetera, but that was not an avenue he could pursue because America is racist, right? And there was segregation. There were literally just things that Black people weren't allowed to do or was incredibly difficult to do. But he never let that squash his passion around technology and his passion around building. And so my father is an engineer by training, and it was important to him that we learned how to build and we learned how to actually build things. And so, yeah, he helped me actually really, really get into those things. But an interesting caveat is that we didn't have money. I grew up poor, right? When people ask me for my life story, I generally say, hey, have you ever seen the movie, The Jerk? Steve Martin's intro line, I grew up as a poor Black boy in Mississippi. That literally is my life story. However, my parents did not believe in money being a barrier or anything like that. And so every week, my mom would take us to the library and we had to get a book and we had to read that book, et cetera. And I primarily focused on things like chemistry, what I was really excited about as a kid, as well as computers. And my dad would also take us to bookstores. Now, obviously, we didn't have the money to actually buy books, but literally we would just sit down in the bookstore, pull out books, et cetera, and actually read them. And during that time, I came across a couple of magazines, one 2600, which my people out there will know, as well as actually Wired magazine. And in particular, on the cover of Wired and also a feature article, and 2600 was a gentleman named John Threat. And I remember reading about him and seeing him, and he was the first real, for lack of a better word, black person that actually seen like in tech and the things that he was doing. And it made me realize, like, hey, you know what? This is also for me. This is also for me. And obviously, John Threat, which I think is a phenomenal human and was probably scapegoated for a lot of things. He got into a little bit of trouble with his skill set. But I didn't believe that that should deter me from actually pursuing the same path. And in particular, because John Threat and I actually had similar motivations. And some of those motivations for getting into tech, and in particular, getting into computer security or hacking, or what I like to refer to as aggressive curiosity. Um, I viewed that aggressive curiosity as an avenue to level the playing field. And by learning tech, by actually learning how to actually get into computers, whether I was had permission or not, um, I saw that as a path for me to actually continue to grow, and ideally as a path to actually change society for a positive outcome.
I love your backstory and kind of how you, at an early age, were had very principled and strong views about tech. And so I'm curious, as you've gone through your career and moved up in leadership roles, do you feel like those kind of views and attitudes have changed at all?
I would be lying to you if I said that they did. They actually haven't changed. How I act on those views and my attitude there has changed, right? Yeah, I mean, I guess you could actually call me your stereotypical angry black man. I am angry. I am black. I am a man. Um, but I am just deeply passionate about everybody having access, and I do believe that humanity has a remarkable potential for the future. And technology should and can be a part of that story. But we actually have to be thoughtful about how we actually utilize technology. We have to be very, very thoughtful about what role, money, capitalism, et cetera, actually plays in technology. And probably even more so, we always have to remember the human when it comes to technology. Actually, oddly enough, part of the reason why I was so excited about joining Reddit has to do with my political views and things like that, because I still believe that Reddit, along with like Wikimedia and probably Mastodon, Reddit kind of represents the original internet, what the internet was intended to be. This idea that you can actually sit down, express your thoughts, send them to another person, get their reaction, learn something about another person. Also, the ability to actually be connected and to find your tribe. Like somewhere out there, there is another young black boy, or maybe it's a young Native American girl who's there isolated and they don't have that community, etc. But they can actually go to Reddit and they will find people that are similar to them, that have similar interests, and people that they actually can learn from. And so that passion for that and those views there has never changed. What changed was actually the approach of how to apply those. I have a lot of friends that are very surprised that I'm not in jail, and two, that I work for corporate America, right? Like I am participating in the capitalist system. Much to the shame of my forefathers and a lot of my friends and people that I actually consider my equals, etc. However, the game we're playing at a world stage is about capitalism and it is about resources, etc. And I need to be a part of that if I actually want to shape and bend that in a just manner and in a way that actually provides more to people. Because one of the superpowers we actually have in security is we all have to actually learn how to influence. And I'm not talking about being like a TikToker or Instagram, all that crap. I mean, actual influence, actually understanding what people need and give them authentic reason to actually believe in the quest or vision that we have to actually make things better. And so it's easier for me to enable a platform that allows people to actually have authentic human communication and human relationships. It's easier for me to actually do that from within a company like Reddit as opposed to being outside of Reddit. It is easier for me to influence the ability for more people to be able to actually utilize cryptocurrency or use credit cards and take credit cards when I was at Square. It's all these things that we can do as security practitioners, even those of us that are our political views might be somewhat radical, but correct. Radical, but correct. Even those of us that have that bent, there is a lot of value in us actually participating in these companies because we can influence so many people via the work we actually do at these companies, and we can actually protect so much of humanity via the work we do at these companies.
That's awesome. I feel I feel really good that a part of your role at Reddit is it's not just the security and the compliance side, but it's also the privacy side, which
Oh,
in many, like the way that I view it, that is kind of the almost like the voice of the user
yes.
inside the company. It's like keeping that user safe, keeping their information private and stuff like that.
Oh no,
It's
yeah,
cool.
it's one of the things that I'm passionate about because one of the great things is when you have privacy, you can be more vulnerable. And you can actually share things with other people in a way that maybe you wouldn't otherwise. And that allows you to get the help that you need in your life. It's no secret that there are people on the, LGBTQ community that are actually still in the closet, right? And it's a very real thing. And for their own personal safety, they need to be in the closet. And it's unfortunate. However, Reddit allows them to not be isolated. And they're able to actually express themselves because we are respectful of their privacy, because we give them that platform and that we view ourselves as data custodians as opposed to data owners. Because we take that angle, it gives them the comfort to actually build real relationships. Platforms that don't provide that, you're not getting authentic human interaction. You're getting things people are posting just to get likes, and yeah, that might be fun, but it's not the same as somebody being able to actually really express themselves, actually learn something even about themselves, etc. And that all starts with our promise of privacy. Like one of our goals is to make Reddit the most trustworthy platform for authentic human interactions on the internet. And you can't be trustworthy if people don't feel like they have privacy, because trustworthy is not just an objective reality, it's also an emotional response. And part of that is them knowing that, hey, the information they post on Reddit is respectful of their privacy.
Do you have like a early story as a user? Because I'm imagining you used Reddit for anything. We just talk about privacy, you know, users being synonymous. But is there anything that you care to share that might be interesting?
Oh man, that's actually a good one. How about this? I can share with you some of my favorite subreddits.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll share with you the ones that maybe are a little less controversial. One of my favorite subreddits is slash MMA. I love slash MMA, and I know there's a slash UFC, but we don't want to talk about that. Um, so that's one. Another favorite of mine is slash educational. And if you haven't been there, it is phenomenal. It's almost like it's like a cute picture of an animal and also some facts. So you actually get, you get a nice little emotional response to seeing like a cute little baby bear, and then you actually get to learn, hey, this is where the bear is from. This is what the kind of things the bear likes to eat, or whatever. And then probably, and I hate even saying the last part of this name because I don't want to be associated with that platform. But one of my other favorite subreddits is Black People Twitter. And I love it mostly because it's what Black Twitter actually should be. A platform that's actually moderated so you can actually have deep, interesting conversations and sometimes just fun conversations about things actually in the Black community, things actually impacting us, et cetera. And also in a way that's still open to anybody else to actually come in and actually join in the conversation. So.
Okay, tell me about how you actually ended up at Reddit most recently. So, like, how did you? You've been kind of friends of the company for a while, or friends of people at the company. So tell me about like how you ended up here.
Yeah, that's actually a great question, and I think Chris Slow and I both have to answer that question because I don't remember. It was many, many moons ago when Reddit was looking for their first CISO. Chris Slow actually reached out to me, and just the timing at that point wasn't right, and I was working on something that was personally important to me. So at the time, I was at Square, and we were working on some very, very meaningful and needful things that the planet needed. And so I didn't believe that it was right for me to actually step away at the time. Fortunately, however, Reddit hired a phenomenal CISO who is also my former boss, a gentleman named Sean Catlett. He actually decided to actually, move away from all the big dollars and all the fancy brand names, et cetera, and actually joined this little startup called Reddit. And I was actually super excited about that, and that made it even easier to stay in touch with it. And in fact, Reddit also hired one of my friends and also a Dev Color member. In fact, he's on the board of Dev Color now, Nick Caldwell. It's one of the first VPs of engineering, et cetera. And so that continued my enthusiasm about the platform. The second time around, I think Chris and I actually talked about it, but once again, like the timing wasn't right, or maybe I even just ignored the email. But the third time around, um, it was actually just at a really, really good point. And in particular, with some of the things actually going on in society, I felt like Reddit is the best place for me to be useful to the rest of the world, right? And at least in some small form. I love my former employer. My former employer actually built a lot of great things, also democratizing access for people, et cetera. So anybody that needs a great HR product, go out and check out Gusto. But what they weren't doing though is helping to resolve some of the societal issues that we're actually having today, which is actually something that Reddit can help with. The more trustworthy we make Reddit, the more reliable Reddit becomes for people seeking information, for people actually seeking to understand, hey, is this conspiracy theory real? Or somebody actually really trying to understand, hey, what does this politician actually mean to me? Oh, hey, who are these people coming in actually adding this content that actually sounds like nonsense? Reddit is probably one of the most useful companies I can be working at today. And I would argue to say that actually many security and privacy individuals, this is actually one of the better things they can actually do for humanity is to make these platforms safer, to make them more transparent, to make lives of miscreants that want to spread misinformation, et cetera, more difficult on our platform. And that was probably one of the bigger motivations for me. And also, I like Chris, and I just like working with them. Probably much to my partner's disappointment, because Chris and I have way too many similarities. So she knows when I get a text message from Chris, it's probably some new gadget and something else that I'm going to go and try to build, and in this weird nerd arms race that Chris and I have.
What's the most recent gadget that he caused you to buy? Can you think of it?
Oh, it was probably he's the one who actually convinced me to get good ventilation for my 3D printer and my laser cutter. 'Cause he was like, "Hey, Flea, don't kill your family." And I was like, "Oh, that's probably a good idea." It's like, "Oh, because I'm from Mississippi. Our regulations there are a little bit more fast and loose, right? So, like, inhaling some toxic fumes, that's fine. But oh yeah, yeah, that's probably not a good idea." And so Chris helped me out with that. So he's really big into 3D printing. He has a laser cutter. He has a phenomenal setup for his maker space, which I am still jealous of.
That is definitely like a make me smile moment. I think that's a good thing that he convinced you to get. Okay, so tell me about. I think that it's something that I don't have visibility to, and obviously no experience. When you come into a company at the C-suite, at kind of like the highest level of your craft or responsibility, what's kind of your process? Like, how do you come in and, gain people's trust and get everybody on your side, and then kind of make positive change to start happening?
Yeah. So all of this is actually cliched and stereotypical, right? Because there isn't a substitute for going around and actually listening to people and asking and understanding where they're coming from, understanding their incentives, why decisions were made, et cetera, and coming from a place of no judgment. Because when you can actually come from that place of no judgment and really get to know people and understand why they made decisions, and even more so what motivates and incentivizes them, it helps you understand how a company got to the point that it is, right? Oftentimes people will show up at a new company and they're super frustrated because, oh, hey, why didn't you build this thing? Hey, why isn't this process in place? There is always a reason. And if you can actually understand that reason, then you can understand how to actually fix and improve things. The other big thing that I try to do, for better or worse, is I actually try to be authentic. It turns out that people are far more trusting and a lot more responsive to you if you show up as an authentic person. right? I don't like I said, people can't see this, dude. I dress like a mechanic. My normal day to day, I am Dickies head to toe, right? And people see that. They see that, oh, Flea isn't just some, I don't know, some suit or whatever. It's like, oh, no, he's a real, just normal, regular person. He just happens to have this job and he has this responsibility. And that makes it easier for people to actually be open and also easier for people to actually trust and easier then for people to respond to requests. Because when you're authentic, people are more likely to help you than when they believe you have some kind of ulterior motive, or at least some motive that isn't transparent.
When you were coming in and listening to people, did you start to see what would be unique about your role at Reddit? Like what was different at Reddit in regards to security and maybe privacy and compliance than at previous companies?
Oh yes, yes. Like probably one of the big things is Reddit is a platform more than anything else, and we want to provide infrastructure and a better platform for the redditors that use it, right? The people that are actually investing their time on Reddit. Now, with other companies and other roles, you spend a lot of time just saying like, okay, well, hey, here's the product we're going to make you, and you have to eat it or you don't, right? Reddit is filled with a bunch of snooze that are deeply passionate about Reddit themselves. They're all like closeted redditors, right? We inside the company we don't share our real usernames, but everybody at Reddit actually loves the product and they use it, so they are intrinsically motivated as well to improve it. Now, you look at a company such as NetSuite, a company I used to work at. Very few employees at NetSuite needed an ERP solution in their day to day lives. So the way that we actually manifested the product was very different than how it actually worked here at a company like Reddit. But the great thing about it is that because everybody here is also a Redditor, they're not just a snoo, they are a Redditor themselves. They understand the fundamental problems and they also understand the needs of everybody else using the platform and the needs for that platform to also be responsive as well as flexible so that people can actually make and curate the communities that are actually best for them. And that's very, very, very unique because it means that we have to take a different angle when we actually think about how we actually protect the infrastructure, and some of the tools we actually might want to build, et cetera, there.
Now that you know everything about the Reddit internals after the past few months, is there things that you can say publicly that you see on the horizon for Reddit for this upcoming year in terms
Oh,
of like things we need to tackle, things we need to do well?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's no secret that Reddit wants to make more Redditors, right? And we do that by making the platform itself more approachable, making it easier to discover things. I think people that are joining the platform now, they actually get to have these recommendations of subreddits and things like that. And this is where I put my old man hat on and go like, oh, back in my day, I didn't have that, right? You just showed up on the front page and you just start clicking shit. Now you can actually have a much more curated experience, and the old Reddit is great for us that are from, like back in the day Usenet users and BBSs, et cetera, but it's not the perfect experience for somebody who's maybe actually new to something like Reddit, right? Where you actually have the freedom to actually go out and find things that are actually meaningful to you. But there is so much great content on Reddit and so many great subreddits that you may not know immediately which ones are the best ones for you. So that's where we're putting a lot of work into actually improving that experience, which I think that's going to go a long way for people. So that's probably the thing that I'm most excited about, and also I think one of the things that actually is most important for Reddit to do.
I love that you kind of addressed the, I guess you could call it tension between old Reddit and new Reddit. And I think that's the perfect way to describe it. It's like a lot of younger people might have never seen things that look like that, like old Reddit. And so it's
Oh yeah,
like, I mean, they don't even know how to engage with it. So yeah, it's kind of meeting users, I think, where they are.
yeah, and that's a great thing. Like the analogy that I like to give to some of the old heads out there is like, yeah, some of us still use IRC, right? And you know what? Slack, as much as I complain about it, is easier for somebody, right? Like, somebody in Slack, if Slack is their first experience, they don't know anything about slash XDDC or even slash DCC, right? So it's like it's those kind of things that maybe the rough edges and things we actually use quote unquote early internet. are no longer necessary. And the internet is about bringing people together. So that means we actually have to reduce some of these barriers. We have to stop that gatekeeping, because the more people participating in these subreddits, the better it is for everybody, even us old heads.
Okay, let's do a couple more fun questions. So you have a blurred out bookshelf. Obviously, people listening can't see it. But could you share two things that are, even though you're not nostalgic, two things that you maybe feel some feelings for on your bookshelf?
Oh yeah. Let's see. I'm going to turn around real quick, so I can see what actually I have there. Oh, okay. Yeah. Two great ones. The autobiography of Malcolm X. I love that book. His story and his life is useful for everyone to learn about. And it was actually especially impactful for me, because I was a young, angry black man, right? And starting out similar conditions as Malcolm X, and actually finding that way towards, hey, how do I actually turn that anger into creative passion and healing passion? And when you actually go through Malcolm X's journey, you actually get to see that somebody who started out as very radical and very hostile, right? To somebody who's actually, oh no, wait a second, this isn't about black or white. This is about creating a great human experience. And that journey is actually phenomenal. The other is probably very stereotypical for Silicon Valley, The Lives of Stoics, which is, I recommend, is a great book for everybody to read, because it helps you understand how to find your purpose and how to actually live what your purpose is, as opposed to trying to respond to all the external stimuli and all the external pressures, et cetera, that are actually mostly meaningless.
Okay, top 5 programming languages. I know you've probably used more than 5, but
yes, top 5 programming languages. I have not forgotten the face of my father, so I have to start with C. So C obviously number one. It is still remarkably powerful. It is still a great language, and I still recommend that everybody starting in their CS journey learn C. You're going to learn so much about how computers actually work. After that, I would actually say Java, and I know Java gets a bad rap, but first of all, the JVM is a work of art. And as far as actually virtual machines for interpreted languages, it's hard to actually do better than that. It is prolific. It is easy to use. It is easy to teach, etc. Um, After that would probably be Python. And I know there's probably gonna be some people out there who know me who's gonna be like, wait a second, Fleet just said a dynamic language. Ooh. It's like, yeah. It's like, if I have to pick one, Python is actually gonna be one of my go-tos there. After that, it probably gets maybe a little bit more obscure. I like Eiffel. And yeah. So for all those CS nerds that are interested in, like, design by contract, et cetera, type work, Eiffel is still a great language, and it's still worth using and learning. And then probably uh I want to say Lisp, but I don't want to say Lisp, because Spez really likes Lisp. But Lisp, maybe I'll just say eLisp. I'll say eLisp. eLisp also holds a special place in my heart, and probably because I'm also an Emacs user. I'm just airing all the dirty laundry today.
well, thanks so much, Flea, for sharing your history and all about what you're doing at Reddit. I'm very excited to see what 2024 brings.
Oh, well, I am so glad that you were able to actually have me, and hopefully the listeners picked up something. If they picked up nothing else, listen to Tool and find yes.
So what do you think? Does it sound cool to build Reddit, one of the largest sites on the internet? If so, check out our open positions at www.redditinc.com/careers. And to get more behind the scenes info, check out Reddit's engineering blog at reddit.com/r/redditeng. And that's it for now. See you in the next episode of Building Reddit. Building Reddit is an official podcast from Reddit. This episode was produced by Ryan H. Lewis and Raquel Dietz. Thanks for listening.